First thing you're going to want to know about for shooting surf action from the beach is long lenses. So I've talked a little bit in the lens section about those long telephoto lenses. I'll go into a little bit more detail now. There are lots of different choices. If you've got an interchangeable lens camera, then you're going to want to get, depending on what exactly kind of shot you want to get a really long lens. I tend to shoot with a 55 to 210mm on my Sony a6500, and for me that gives me quite a pulled back angle. I can't get in really close. I do occasionally use my Olympus teleconverter to get a little bit more reach. When people say reach, when they're talking about telephoto lenses, it means they can reach a subject that's further away and get them into the frame. So there's a few different ways you can compose a long range shot. I prefer a bit more pulled back, have a bit more of the scenery behind, set the scene a little bit more rather than those really tight crops. If you're shooting a surf competition, so I've been to a couple of surf competitions and I have purposely taken longer lenses. So I took a 150 to 600mm lens, and I'll show you a picture now of where I was set up on a rock. I'd moved around quite a bit. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But I set up for a little while on a rock, and I had a 600mm lens on my Sony a6500, so it was 900mm equivalent, and I could get really nice and close in on the surfers as they were doing moves, as they were basically surfing their heat. And I think for that kind of reporting on an event, that's quite useful, because you want to be able to see who the person is. You want to see stickers on their board, or I guess that's the other reason you might want to get really close in, is if you're shooting on behalf of a sponsor or something like that, or even at a surf school where you need to be able to identify that person, or the value of the photo is in identifying the person. That's when you want to get really close in. So 150 to 600mm zoom lenses are great. You can get 600mm prime lenses, 800mm lenses. They cost a lot of money. The longer the lens, the bigger it is, the more money it costs usually. So if your surf photography relies on being able to identify the person in the shot, you're going to want a very long lens. So for Sony, like I say, I use the Sigma 150 to 600mm. I think that's a good bet for affordable, really long lenses for most systems, because they create that same lens for different camera mounts. I had to use an adapter, a Sigma adapter, to use it on my Sony camera, but I had great results with it. So look for a camera that can give you that really long focal length, either through a lens or something like the Sony RX10 series, which can get you in that close. Because my surf photography doesn't really rely on being able to identify the person, because I'm doing it for myself mostly. I'm not really selling it to that person or magazines or anything in order to be able to identify that person. So bear that in mind. If you're like me and you don't have that need, that requirement to identify the people, then I recommend going for something a bit longer, so a bit shorter. The 55 to 210mm for me on Sony. I've also used the 70 to 200 and the 100 to 400, and they've both been great and giving me lots of options for different angles. So hopefully that little bit of insight it's going to help you decide which type of lens to go for. And then in the next few videos, I'll explain what first steps you should take in order to get slightly more interesting shots using that type of lens.